but I wanted to watch this. Sony execs delay marathon indefinitely. Staff had no idea. That is crazy, okay? That is very, very crazy for multiple reasons, right? If Sony had to come in and tell y'all you had to delay this game, that looks bad on the marathon, Bungie, and everything, because if they didn't realize internally they needed to delay this game, I'm not gonna call anybody names, but it's very ignorant. Okay, it's just very ignorant of them, because the game had a lot of issues. A lot of people, content creators, normal people, did not like the game. Really, you have your few people who did like the game, but the majority of people did not like the game, and they seen features that should have been in the game first of all at the beginning, like solo play, duos, proximity chat, better systems, like at the beginning. But you didn't know this, Bungie? You didn't know this marathon team? Sony had to come in. So hopefully this isn't true. Let's see what Billier has to say. I like his videos. Pretty good content creator. Most of the stuff he says I do agree with, but like with everybody else, there are some stuff I don't. So let's see if we're on the same page with this one.
Well, everyone, the inevitable has just happened. PlayStation and Bungie finally admitted what everybody already knew. Marathon is not ready, and it will not release in 3 months. Even before the plagiarism scandal, even before the alpha test, people doubted the September release date. It just felt wrong. And not just out of reflexive hate. This game had been marred in controversy. Bungie had been marred in controversy for years and years. But now, the companies are facing reality. After endless streams of concern, they have admitted that the player's voice was, quote, strong and clear. And the upshot is that Marathon is now indefinitely delayed. Marathon's reveal 2 months ago started a fairly unbelievable string of...
We already know about that. I think I posted a video going through that, like reading the tweet and the blog post or whatever. We already know that. I'm concerned the title, Sony execs delay Marathon. You know, it's a whole different story if the Marathon team and Bungie delayed it themselves. But if Sony had to come in and tell you that you needed to delay the game, that's a big problem, in my opinion. Okay.
Problems. Now, on the surface, the reveal did look slick, polished, a new art direction, a very artistically yummy trailer, and yes, a new entry into the extraction gameplay genre. But audiences were immediately divided. Number one, they didn't recognize this new Marathon from the Marathon that they knew from decades ago. This felt like quite the miscalculation, but it's one that was compounded on because Bungie wasn't building this game for existing extraction fans. We'll certainly get on to how they felt soon. Now then came the closed alpha, the purely American alpha with heavily restricted codes, all despite many people wanting in. Pretty odd. Then the players who did get in, well, they found that something was off. PC players were outraged at mandatory aim assist.
Only gonna ruin the PC part of the game. You're just watering down PC. You're making PC and mouse and keyboard players basically feel like shit.
Bungie later removed it. The hero kits were kind of interesting, but they didn't feel balanced and they didn't feel fully developed. PvE elements did get some praise, but there were missing genre standards, and they got brutalized for that. No solo mode, no proximity chat. So if you were a die-hard extraction fan, this game was really not trying to woo you over. And that was quite strange. It was a game that didn't look like its IP, entering a genre, but not specifically for players who actually like that genre, which, you know, would appear to be quite risky. Now, of course, the Bungie strength is bringing things to new audiences, but the closed nature of the testing meant that casual players, masses of casual players, couldn't discover if they liked the game.
Yeah.
And then it got worse. Arc Raiders, another extraction shooter long in development, had a closed beta, and it went viral. If you're wondering why, it's because it had all the features that Marathon didn't, plus a heap of polishing. And then on top of all of that, the plagiarism hit. An artist accused Bungie of ripping off her designs. Bungie reviewed the claim. They admitted that it was true, that specific assets were in fact stolen. They promised to make it right with that artist. They blamed somebody who had left during pre-production, but with the broad years-long narrative going against the studio, especially the studio's leadership, and the specific narrative around Marathon going very bad very fast, it was quite brutal. The art director Joe Cross really did become public enemy number one for many people, and that meant that when he went onto this stream, it was a very awkward situation. The plan had been to show gameplay and discuss Marathon, but well, they had to do a review of all of their assets. And with this drama happening, they basically couldn't show any gameplay. That just led to a very awkward, very painful looking stream. One where Bungie staff couldn't say anything about Marathon's development or how they would fix this newest problem, let alone the various other problems. And all of this in a world where Marathon was supposed to launch in September, just months away, which was never going to happen. Nobody in the public by that stage expected that it would hit its release date, and now the inevitable has thankfully finally happened. Now that we've got the lightning summary of how we got here, let's talk about the delay. So yes, it's delayed. Bungie gave no new release date, and in this Bungie.net update, they said they won't even talk publicly until later this fall. So it essentially seems that the old release date is in fact going to be the release date of a potential release date, or perhaps the release date of a potential release window, pending, changes and stuff. And it's also when we're going to get a progress update. And as for the progress that's going on, they outlined changes for 3 core areas that are all designed to address alpha criticisms. First, upping the survival game. So they're making the PvE and PvP more challenging and more rewarding. Second, doubling down on the Marathon universe. Per reports, a 4th map that already was planned and going to be a thing would have been set on the actual Marathon, the actual ship, and the PvE part of it would have essentially been a Destiny raid tier puzzle thing. So while it does seem they always had big cool stuff like that planned, their framing here focuses more on narrative fidelity, more narrative interaction. They promise a darker tone that delivers on the themes of the original trilogy. Yep. And if you want to know what that means, I'd highly recommend the Mandalore gaming videos. Third then, addressing genre complaints. So proximity chat is coming, so are solo and duo options. Of course, though, all this lacks detail, which to some will inspire confidence, but I actually do think it's fair. I think they haven't defined all of those details yet, because they evidently have a lot of work to do. Now, Bungie said there will be more closed testing, the alpha participants will return, and I believe they're already sending out more codes now. So, it's a simple and obvious plan. Bring you features, get feedback, then update accordingly, and all on a not particularly firm public timeline. Here's the core truth though. Most of this game will not change, right? It's too big. Too much work is already done. Pre-designed characters aren't going anywhere, neither is the presumed monetization model. But the hope is that if they can meet the feature demands from the more engaged genre fans, then they'll actually get a bunch of features, like say solos, that a lot of people would like anyway, and that if they improve all of the other things, then perhaps everything else will fall into place. So, Bungie's developers are going to have a lot of work to do. They're thankfully going to get many more months to do that work than planned. But here's an interesting detail. According to Paul Tassie's sources, Bungie's staff found out about the delay at the same time that we did. Why keep it secret? Well, presumably I would say to avoid more leaks, because the one thing that's been a total disaster around this is their public narrative. But here's the thing, even us on the outside who have been paying attention to this closely have very much seen for weeks now that someone at PlayStation had already decided. The reason why is fairly simple. We saw their investor presentation. One thing is crystal clear. PlayStation is taking Marathon very, very seriously. It filled multiple slides in their recent investor presentation and their fireside chat.
So I mostly believe Paul Tassi, because when he reports on stuff, they're mostly correct, and he doesn't really have anything to lie about. That messed up his reputation and stuff. So even the staff didn't want to be delayed, which probably means that the devs working on it and the upper management and Marathon, and probably Bungie too, didn't know. Sony knew, which is terrible because how do you not see all the feedback and all that and everything and see that you need to delay your game? You know, we need more time. We need some of these features in the game. We need to work on this or that. You didn't see that? You didn't think about delay this? I'm so done.
Chat. They frame
so done,
Marathon
man.
repeatedly as core to next fiscal year plans. That means any point between May 2025 and April 2026. So I guess that's your very, very big launch window. And they positioned it as developing IP, right alongside the Ghost series and Astrobot. They also call out strong early engagement for Bungie's bold and innovative new title, which is a bloody hilarious statement given all the shit that's happened. But do you notice what they never said? They never said that it launches in September. Bear in mind, this was all weeks before the actual delay would be publicly announced. And I think this all suggests something important here. When they put this together for investors, when, say, studio CEO Herman Hulst made his comments, the decision had already been made further up the chain. The evidence? Well, live services and Marathon came up as a standalone question in their pre-recorded chat. And I think it's fair to say that's a chat that is haunted by the ghost of Concord. That's because Hulst framed Concord as, quote, good work and big effort, but also insufficiently differentiated. Which, doesn't sound amazing. But most importantly, he said this: we have reviewed our processes in the light of this, to deeply understand why the title failed to meet expectations, to ensure we're not going to make the same mistakes again. Now, what are those new processes? Well, we can actually see those in Bungie's delay statement. Hulst told investors that PlayStation was excited for release. He described the alpha response in very specific terms. We're monitoring the closed alpha cycle the team just gone through, and some of that feedback has been varied, but that's super useful. That's why you do testing. You know what, Herman? Varied is true. It's charitable, but yeah, it's a true way to characterize things.
Yeah.
But really what he's doing when he says that is he's selling investors on them making business progress. That as an overall system, Sony are no longer going to do Concords because their systems, the way they run their business, will no longer produce that sort of result. So this tracks. The player engagement idea also resonates here. He talks as well about the validation of assumptions from developers, about test, iterate, test again. And if that sounds familiar, well, that's exactly how Bungie are introducing updates, testing features as they're ready. And throughout the presentation, which we'll dive into more later because, it's a very interesting one, one theme keeps on emerging, and that's PlayStation leadership being more involved in game release decisions and more involved in development reviews. Why? Well, it's fucking obvious, because they won't let studios take risks like Concord did. There is simply too much at stake. We recently praised Helldivers for good live service design over monetization.
And especially Bungie. How much did they spend on Bungie? $3.7 million? Yeah. Sony's gonna be in there. And they don't want Bungie to fail. Who would? You spend a lot of money on somebody or something, you don't want it to go bad. They're definitely going to be in there.
Because basically, they kind of got FOMO right by making a live service feel live in a way that made sense for the video game bit, not just the business bit. And it seems that video really resonated with you guys. Holy shit, it exploded. Here's the flip side then. In this presentation, we learned that 54% of Helldivers' revenue comes from microtransactions, from the 3.6 million monthly players. That success, their first non-MLB live service, basically made PlayStation adamant that they can do it again, that they need to do it again. Investors obviously love the potential here, and that's why, quote, they remain very committed to building a diverse and resilient live service portfolio. Of course, it is diverse at the minute. It's just
oh, they have the
diverse
show.
in terms
I didn't know
of,
PlayStation
one
owned the
is
show.
alive, one is dead, some are successful, others are killed in the cradle. Just not exactly the type of diverse they're really aiming for. The point, though, is very clear that Helldivers shows, and again I quote, the level of success we achieve if we get everything right. That's obviously what they're shooting for. So now, they're doing everything that they can to get it right, because Marathon is their immediate future. There is the other game, Fair Games, that is still listed as upcoming, and that's especially relevant after Jade Raymond left Haven Studio, apparently after poor internal testing. So I suppose they'll be doing more iteration of that one as well. But overall, the live services will continue, whether that's from partners like Arc System Works or doing a Marvel game, or internal teams like Bungie, because basically, even though Concord was a big failure, there's simply too much potential for another Helldivers in their view. So here's why.
Iron Man looks badass.
Marathon won't be another Concord. Let's compare.
Captain America.
Concord was revealed, it had poor reactions, poor beta response, then it was released anyway, and obviously it completely crashed and burned. Marathon then is not Concord. It's literally playing out in a different way. Sony are taking different actions. And we do know that significant audience interest exists. Not all of it is good, but at least that region-locked alpha did appear to have a lot of people wanting keys. The thing though is, for you and me as enthusiasts, Bungie's name isn't really what it used to be. But at least how Sony will see this is that a new Bungie game will probably attract sales regardless, even if it's just from the promise of a new game from the makers of Halo and Destiny. Now, again, as enthusiasts, those things may not mean that much to us, and we, having followed all the drama, will be very skeptical. They know that they're PlayStation, they're absolutely mass market, and something like this could go big. And because they've realized what they actually can do, ensure no crazy launch failure surprise. It's not that Marathon can't be Concord. If it was going to release in September, it very much could have been. It's far more that, with a delay like this, PlayStation won't let Marathon be a Concord. Two failures like that in a row, especially with Fair Games looking a little bit rocky,
would have played Concord.
Obviously, that would kill confidence. They need to show to everyone that they will not let it be a Concord, because they have learned. The only question is whether Bungie will deliver, or perhaps in a deeper sense, if Bungie even can deliver, given how much of a hard time that studio has had to endure. And if it does fail, I have one prediction. I predict that Herman Hulst will not say that powerful people are out to get him and are paying for negative reviews. That may seem like a random prediction, but it is in fact based on what you'll learn in this video next.
Good video. I agree with a lot of what he said. If you want, do that. Give him a like. I like the video, and I'll post a link so you can go give him some views and stuff. I know he has way more followers than me, but like I always say, no matter how big or small you are or they are, they're gonna get a shout out, link in the chat, and all that good stuff. So yeah, go check out his video, give him some views, some likes, and subscribe to him. Subscribe to him if you want. I'm already subscribed to him. I gave the video a like and linked it in chat. So yeah, if you want, you can leave me a like if you want to. You don't have to. You can even leave a dislike. Subscribe, ring that bell for more videos. And if you want to talk to me and react with me live, come by twitch.tv Fonzie_TV through the weekdays around 5, and we can hang out and actually talk. All right, I'll see y'all next time, ladies and gentlemen.